Have you ever wondered what would happen if Antarctica, the world's largest ice sheet, completely melted? A question that might seem like science fiction, but one that's becoming increasingly relevant in our warming world. Let's take a step back and understand the magnitude of what we're dealing with. Antarctica, a vast expanse of ice and snow, is the coldest, driest and windiest continent on Earth. It's nearly twice the size of Australia and holds about 90% of the world's ice. This icy giant isn't just a featureless snowy desert, but a dynamic and vital component of our planet's climate system. But why should we care about this remote, frozen wilderness? The answer lies in the intricate balance of our global climate. Antarctica's ice sheets act as a colossal mirror, reflecting sunlight back into space and helping to regulate our planet's temperature. It's a finely tuned system, but one that's under threat from rising global temperatures. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather the polar bear on the iceberg: global warming. As our planet heats up, the consequences for Antarctica could be severe. If the Antarctic ice sheet were to melt entirely, it would raise global sea levels by a staggering 60 meters. That's equivalent to submerging an 18-story building. But we're not just talking hypotheticals here. Antarctica is melting right now. The rate at which it's losing ice has tripled in the last decade. This isn't a far-off problem for future generations to tackle, but a pressing issue that's happening under our noses. And yet, all is not lost. By understanding the challenges we face, we can start to develop strategies to mitigate the impacts of climate change. We can't reverse the clock, but we can slow the ticking and give ourselves, and our planet, a fighting chance. The melting of Antarctica is not just a distant possibility, but a reality that we face today. Let's delve deeper into this reality in the next scene: the melting giant. Antarctica is melting at an alarming rate. Now let's dive into the cold hard facts. Antarctica, the world's largest sheet of ice, is losing mass 3 times faster today than it did in the 1990s. That's a whopping 6-fold increase in just 3 decades. Each year the Antarctic ice melt contributes to the global sea level rise, a phenomenon that could potentially flood coastal cities and displace millions of people worldwide. The numbers are staggering. In the 1990s, Antarctica lost 60 billion tons of ice annually. Fast forward to the past decade and we're looking at a staggering 219 billion tons per year. But what's causing this rapid melting? Well, it's a combination of factors all tied back to one common thread: human-induced climate change. Rising temperatures, increased oceanic heat, and changes in wind patterns are all playing a part in this icy drama. The impact of this melting isn't just confined to the icy continent. The effects ripple out, affecting the entire global ecosystem. The melting of Antarctica's ice sheets is causing sea levels to rise, threatening coastal communities around the world. The loss of ice also disrupts the habitats of numerous species, from the smallest krill to the majestic emperor penguin. The reality is, Antarctica's ice acts as the Earth's air conditioner, reflecting sunlight back into space and helping to keep our planet cool. But with the ice disappearing, more sunlight is absorbed by the ocean, leading to further warming and creating a vicious cycle of heat and melt. As we stand on the brink of irreversible damage, the question isn't if Antarctica will continue to melt, but how fast. The consequences of Antarctica's melting ice are far-reaching, affecting not just the continent itself, but the entire globe. Rising sea levels are no longer a thing of the future. As the icy behemoth of Antarctica continues to melt, our oceans are swelling, a phenomenon that's not just confined to the pages of science fiction. The implications are stark and, unfortunately, very real. The colossal volumes of ice stored in Antarctica are staggering. Picture this: if all of Antarctica's ice were to melt, sea levels worldwide would rise by about 200 feet. Now, that's not going to happen overnight, but even a fraction of that could have serious consequences. In fact, we're already seeing the effects. Take the last century as an example. Global sea levels rose by roughly 8 inches, but here's the kicker. Almost half of that increase occurred in the last 25 years. And the projections for the future are even more alarming. The pace is picking up. By the end of this century, if greenhouse gas emissions continue unchecked, we could be looking at an additional rise of up to 6 feet. Such a rise in sea levels doesn't just mean more water. It means more flooding, more erosion, more damage to homes and infrastructure. It means the potential displacement of millions of people worldwide. Coastal cities like Miami, New York, and Shanghai could experience regular flooding, while many island nations face the threat of becoming completely submerged. Economies could crumble as valuable land is claimed by the sea, and the cost of protecting these areas could run into the trillions. But it's not just about the cities and the economies, it's about the people. It's about communities having to abandon their homes, cultures being washed away, lives being uprooted. The rise in sea levels isn't just a threat to the environment, it's a threat to our way of life. It's a threat to human populations. It's a threat to our economies. The rise in sea levels is not just a threat to the environment but also to human populations and economies. The melting of Antarctica and the rising sea levels have a global impact. The implications of these issues radiate far beyond the icy perimeters of the Antarctic. As the world's thermostat, Antarctica's health directly influences the global climate, and its current condition is sounding alarm bells that we cannot afford to ignore. Firstly, let's consider the potential for climate refugees. As sea levels rise, low-lying coastal areas around the globe are at risk of submersion. Imagine cities like Venice, Miami, and even parts of New York, rendered uninhabitable due to frequent flooding. Millions, if not billions, of people could be displaced, forced to leave their homes, their jobs, their lives behind. The term climate refugees is not just a dystopian concept from a sci-fi movie, it's a very real possibility in our not-so-distant future. Next, we must consider the changes in weather patterns. Antarctica's icy landscape plays a vital role in circulating the world's ocean currents and winds. As it melts, this circulation could be disrupted, leading to more extreme weather events worldwide. Think about unseasonal heat waves, bitter cold snaps, devastating droughts, and catastrophic storms. These could become the norm, rather than the exception. Lastly, let's not forget about the threats to biodiversity. The Antarctic is home to a myriad of unique species, from the majestic emperor penguins to the microscopic krill that form the basis of the food chain. As the ice recedes, these creatures lose their habitats, and the ripple effect is felt throughout the global ecosystem. The fate of Antarctica is not just an environmental issue, but a global crisis that requires immediate action. It's not just about saving the polar bears or the penguins, as vital as that is. It's about preserving our planet for future generations, ensuring that they too can marvel at the diversity of life and the beauty of our world. The time to act is now, because when it comes to climate change, there are no second chances. In the face of such a crisis, what can we do? It may seem like a gargantuan task, but it's the small, everyday actions that add up and make a significant difference in the grand scheme of things. Let's quickly recap what we've discussed today. We painted a stark picture of the reality of Antarctica, a once robust and icy fortress now slowly surrendering to the relentless assault of global warming. The melting giant is shedding its icy armor at an alarming rate, contributing to the rising sea levels that pose an imminent threat to coastal cities and low-lying countries around the world. These aren't just distant, abstract concepts. The effects of Antarctica's melting ice are already being felt across the globe. More frequent and intense weather events, shifts in ecosystems, and the displacement of millions of people are just the tip of the melting iceberg. This is an urgent call to action. It's time to take a proactive stance against climate change and the melting of Antarctica. Every one of us has a part to play in this global drama, and it's a role we must take seriously. How can we make a difference? Start by reducing your carbon footprint. This could mean making greener choices in your daily life, like walking or cycling instead of driving, recycling, reducing waste, and consuming less. Every small action helps. Support climate-friendly policies. Advocate for renewable energy. Vote for leaders who prioritize the environment. Encourage businesses to adopt sustainable practices. The future of our planet depends on the choices we make today. Educate yourself and others about the reality of climate change. Share this video with your friends, family, and social networks. The more people understand the severity of the problem, the more pressure there will be on governments and corporations to act responsibly. The future of Antarctica, and indeed our world, lies in our hands. It's time to take action, because if not us, then who? If not now, then when? The clock is ticking and we can't afford to wait any longer.